Hello guys, this is Saruto Uchiha Storm here and welcome to my channel. Today I am doing what if Naruto was a demon fox and was sent to fairy tale. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Chapter 6. Geez, that was a mission, Lucy grumbled as she rested in her bathtub, enjoying the warm water. My body still aches. Lucy rested her head on the tub as she recalled the mission. After running away from the enraged guild masters for accidentally destroying the meeting room, where Fox took her and ran away with the rest of her group. She blushed since it was the second time she wore it. She also learned a lot of things about Fox, like that he uses some kind of shadow magic, he's some sort of doctor, and he has 3 bushy tails, which she finds strange. And she knew he could match something like Lullaby since he restricted his movements and blocked his attacks like it was nothing. She also remembered how muscular he was and when he pulled her away from the angry guild masters, clutching at his muscular chest. She blushed and splashed water on her face to clear her mind. Don't think of him like that, she told herself as she got up from the bathroom and grabbed a towel, drying herself off. He's my friend. And my teacher. But he's cool. But Mirajane likes him. And then there was the incident with Levi-chan. She moaned, feeling her head messed up. Due to her mission with Fox, unknown feelings began to rise in her chest. Since she met him, her life changed, he has seen things in a way that she never thought existed, and it was all because of him. This is very confusing, she said as she walked into her living room. Hey, nice place you've come to, Gray greeted, sitting on the couch, shirtless. Gah, you pervert, Lucy exclaimed as she kicked Gray, blushing. Ow, what was that for? Gray asked, rubbing his face as Lucy grabbed some clothes and ran back to the bathroom, returning a few seconds later. That's my line, she exclaimed. It's bad enough that Natsu does it, I don't need a stripper to get into my house. For the record, I lost my shirt coming here, Gray said defensively. I just came to remind you of the fight. Struggle, she repeated, looking at him with confusion. I knew you'd forget about it, Gray said with a sigh as he stood up. The reason why Natsu agreed to help Urza, remember? Lucy's eyes widened as she remembered that Natsu had asked Urza for a fight in exchange for joining the mission. A few minutes later, Lucy and Gray arrived at Fairy Tale, where many of the wizards gathered in front of the building. In the center of the large crowd were Urza and Natsu, preparing to fight. Wait, are they really going to fight? Lucy asked in shock as Natsu started to stretch. But they are friends. So? We fight all the time, Gray said, looking at Lucy. But this looks serious, Lucy exclaimed before seeing Kana placing bets on who she would win, with many of them placing bets on Urza. Are you betting? Yeah, otherwise it would be boring, Kana explained with a shrug as Happy walked towards her. Hey, can I bet on Urza? She asked her. Well, I'm not gambling. Lucy exclaimed, crossing her arms. It's immoral. I think there's a chance Natsu-san could win. Ha, good. Lucy turned and saw Fox and Kurama next to her, surprising her since she didn't see him near her. Fox-kun, she exclaimed in surprise. Lucy-san, glad to see you well, he greeted her with a nod before turning back to the fight. Let's see how much Natsu-san has improved since his last meeting with Urza-san. Last meeting? Lucy said as she looked at the two. You mean Natsu and Urza-san fought before? It wasn't a fight, it was a 1-second beating, Kurama replied. Natsu didn't even have a chance. Like it was all over in the blink of an eye. Shut up, Kurama, Natsu exclaimed in an annoyed tone. He was a boy back then. That was last year, the wizards exclaimed in unison. He was a boy a year ago. Natsu exclaimed as he smiled anxiously. I've gotten stronger than before, so don't stop, Urza. Very good. Requip, Urza exclaimed as her body glowed before her outfit changed. A dark red one-piece swimsuit armor with black and orange flame-like parts and other parts resembling dragon's limbs, dragon's wing-like breastplate, dragon's claw-like Greaves dragon and her hair was tied into pigtails resembling the horns of a dragon. That's Urza's Flame Empress armor, exclaimed one of the wizards. Reduce fire attacks by 50%. Urza isn't holding back. Fine, I want a nice clean fight with no property damage. Makarov exclaimed, acting as referee. Now, begin. The moment he said that, Natsu quickly charged, his fists alight with flames. With a roar, he threw a punch at Urza, which she blocked with her orange sword. Natsu quickly followed up with a flaming spinning kick, which Urza dodged before launching a punch that sent Natsu flying a few feet away. Roar of the Fire Dragon. Natsu exclaimed as he released a stream of fire from his mouth. Urza crossed her arms in front of her, taking the attack head-on. They all watched as the flames hit Urza, some cheering, thinking they won her bet. Suddenly, the flames suddenly burst open, revealing Urza unharmed. Urza suddenly flew into the air, causing Natsu to smile as he leapt into the air, using his flames to propel Urza. He then began throwing flaming punches and kicks, which Urza deflected with her sword. Wow, Lucy said with wide eyes. To think that the two strongest in Fairy Tail can fight like this. Fairy Tail is stronger? Gray commented as everyone looked at Lucy. Well, you, Urza, and Natsu make up the strongest team in Fairy Tail, Lucy explained. What idiot told you that crap? Gray asked bluntly. Mirajane, who was smiling behind him, suddenly cried in her little sister's arms. Oh, I didn't mean that, Mira-san. Gray exclaimed as all the boys gave him dirty looks for making her cry. Urza-san is the strongest woman in Fairy Tail, but Natsu and Gray aren't part of the strongest, Lucy-san, Fox explained, still facing the direction of the fight. There is a ranking system in the guild, with S-class being the highest, and there are only 6 people in Fairy Tail who have that rank, and one of them is Urza-san. Natsu-san and Gray-san have the potential to be S-class, but it still has a long way to go. I didn't know, Lucy muttered before looking back at the fight, with both fighters returning to the ground. You've gotten stronger, Natsu, she congratulated her with a smile, looking serious. I don't need to hold back. Bring him, Urza. Natsu exclaimed as he prepared to unleash a heavy attack. She exclaimed a voice, causing everything to stop. They all looked up and saw a humanoid toad dressed in white robes walking through the crowd, the symbol of the council displayed on the robe, with a group of rune knights behind him. I am a messenger from the Magic Council. A frog? Lucy thought as the messenger walked forward, pulling out a scroll. By the authority given to me by the Magic Council, the one called Fox is under arrest. Everyone's eyes widened as they turned to look at Fox, his expression hidden from him, but Kurama's was not. His eyes were wide with surprise before filling with anger. Before he was about to do anything, Fox started stroking him and calmed him down. Old man? Fox said, turning to Makarov, who did not please look at what was happening. There aren't many options, Makarov said with a sigh. Go ahead, kid. It's probably nothing. Just a scolding for the mission with Lullaby. Am I being punished because Natsu-san destroyed the guild master's meeting room? Fox said with a sigh as he walked towards the rune knights. How unfair. Hey, don't blame me. Natsu exclaimed in anger as he stomped toward the group. And there's no way I'm going to stand here and leave you, idiots. Kurama, Fox said as one of the knights chained his hands. Suddenly, Natsu doubled over as he felt something hit his abdomen, before feeling his limbs restrained by something thin. Blinking, he saw that he was racked by thin ninja cables, with Kurama stroking his paws. Hey, what's the big idea? Natsu exclaimed in anger as he struggled to get out of the wires, his limbs bursting with fire. Shut up, Kurama said as he slapped a piece of paper over Natsu, the symbols glowing. Natsu's eyes widened as he felt his magic suddenly curtail. Hey, what did you do? He exclaimed, before Kurama suddenly put a piece of duct tape over Natsu's mouth, silencing him and ignoring his angry, muffled protests. Kurama then watched as Fox was led away by the Rune Knights, grunting as they all fell silent as the Rune Knights carried away one of their own. Shouldn't we do something? Lucy asked as she looked at Makarov, who just sighed. There is nothing we can do, but wait, said the old master. Later. Fox silently followed the frog through the marble halls of the Magic Council. He has not said a word during the trip to the place. He has never been here before, as he never had any reason to. He has been to the area dozens of times, due to a mission, but never entered the Magic Council headquarters. As he walked through the corridors, a figure sitting on the rails was waiting for them. He was a young man with blue hair and blue eyes, with a red tattoo under his right eye, dressed in a white coat over a black shirt, white pants, and white boots. Fox noted that his escort bowed deeply to the man, showing that he was one of the highest authorities. Greetings, Fox-san, the man greeted in a friendly manner, but Fox could feel something dark underneath, and felt that the man was incomplete. You know me, but I don't know you, Fox replied. Oh, how rude of me, the man said with a smile. My name is Seagrain Fernandez, a member of the Magic Council. Impressive for someone your age, Fox commented. Thank you for what? Seagrain said with a nod before looking at Fox. You know, I've always been interested in Fairy Tail. You're an interesting bunch, you always do what you want, even after the council warned you. On numerous occasions. That's how we are, I guess, Fox replied with a shrug. Well, I shouldn't keep you waiting, Seagrain said as he slowly disappeared, revealing that he was a thought projection. See you inside, Fox-san. Fox stood there before the frog that was leading him told him to move. Fox followed him through the double oak doors, which looked like a place where a criminal was to be tried. Sitting high on the platforms were the 11 members of the council, the ones who decided the fate and priorities of every magic guild in Fiore. Fox walked towards the small platform with wooden fences. He then looked up, looking at the members. He could sense that some of them were very frustrated, probably at Fairy Tail, but some were not. Fairy Tail Fox, said the protagonist, an old man dressed in white robes, with long white hair and a long white beard, holding a mallet. Due to the destruction you caused in the Guild Masters Meeting Hall, we of the Magic Council decree that Fairy Tail will pay for the damage caused. That is all? Fox asked, a little surprised. Well, this trial is just for formality, explained a beautiful woman dressed in a revealing white kimono with silky black hair. A display of our power, so to speak. Shut up, Ultier, said a short old man with cat ears in a stern voice. She's right though, Seagrain said with a small smile. I see, said Fox. But why me? Urza Scarlet was there too, and her name is widely known, unlike me, who only takes C-rank missions. Seagrain suggested you, for some reason, replied a large man with a bushy white beard. I see, Fox said before pulling a scroll out of his cloak. How much does Fairy Tail owe you? Do you think you can afford the full experience? One of them began, only to be interrupted when there was a loud noise and a cloud of smoke. Once the smoke cleared, a few council members' jaws fell on the giant pile of jewels neatly arranged next to Fox. Will this be enough? Fox asked as he looked at the tip, still shocked at the amount. Seagrain and Ultier laughed quietly at the old men's expressions. Yeah, the chief counselor said, coughing into his hand. That's enough. Thank you. As long as there's no problem, said Fox, nodding as the frog unbuttoned his hands. If that's all, I'll go. Have a nice day, Magic Council. He bowed courteously to them before moving toward the exit. The council members watched him leave with strange expressions. I didn't know that Fairy Tail has a knight in the guild, one of them commented. Yes, such a rare trait in such a troublesome guild, another managed. Seagrain just smiled when the frogman took the money. He knew that Fox was hiding something, and he wanted to know what it was. After all, he could liven up the place. Fox walked out of headquarters and saw that it was almost sunset. He would take a long time to get home, so he stayed at an inn for the night. It's surprisingly quiet, he commented to himself as he walked to find an inn to sleep in. This was the first time he hadn't had Kurama with him in a while, so it was surprisingly lonely walking the streets. Then he noticed a boy and a girl running happily through the empty streets, smiling and laughing. He just stood there as I felt the two of them running back to where they lived. Retrospective scene. Hurry up Naru-kun, a 6-year-old Sayuri exclaimed as she ran through the empty streets of Konoha, the streets dyed orange by the setting sun. You're too fast, Seiyu-chan, exclaimed 6-year-old Naruto as he ran after his best friend. Go more space. Sayuri just laughed as she kept running. Naruto started laughing and ran after her. The two ignored the looks they were receiving from the adults. Naruto was getting sneers, stares, and disgust, while Sayuri was getting critical looks, wondering why she would team up with the demon brat. But they ignored them as they ran to Ichiraku Ramen, to enjoy dinner after a long day of playing together. Naruto gave a happy smile as the two entered the family stands together, being happily greeted by the father-daughter duo running the ramen stand. The two children sat at their usual places, smiling happily and enjoying the warmth. Flashback end. Loneliness really is unbearable, Fox thought sadly as he started walking again. After taking a few steps, he stopped sensing something. He suddenly disappeared into the shadow of him, surprising the onlookers near him. In a dirty alley, a group of unpleasant people surrounded a nervous girl. She was about 12 years old, she had pale skin and beautiful red hair tied in braids that reached the back of her legs, dressed in a red dress. Come on, miss, one of them said as she took a deep breath. If you want our help, you have to take off your clothes. That's right, that's what you need to do for our help, said another while the others nodded their heads. The girl looked scared as her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she nodded and slowly began the process of removing her clothes. Suddenly, a strong pressure filled the area causing the group to almost stop breathing, although it did not affect the girl. The shadows began to move menacingly towards the group. You bastards are the ones I hate the most, a voice echoed through the area, sending a chill of impending doom as the shadows drew closer. Taking advantage of children for your own amusement. Shadow Grace, Black Vortex. Suddenly, the group began to sink into the shadows, causing them to scream in fear as they tried to free themselves from the shadow's embrace. The young woman watched in fear as the group was finally devoured by the shadows. Are you okay? She jumped at the voice, this time less threatening and softer. She turned to see Fox standing next to her. Did those men hurt you? The girl looked at him before slowly shaking her head. That's good, Fox said before returning to her monotone voice. Tell me, where are your parents? They must be worried about you. Quote. I have no parents, said the girl. Oh, sorry, Fox said, not knowing what to say next. Do you have a tutor? They sent me away from my town, replied the girl, no longer nervous in front of Fox. This is my first time out of town. I see, said Fox, which explained why she was so willing to go with the group of disgusting men. You should be more careful, little lady. There are a lot of bad men out here. The girl nodded. Fox then led her out of the alley, where she was holding on to the edge of her cloak. Not knowing what to do, Fox simply let the girl accompany him until they found an inn. Sensing that the girl is hungry, the two of them sat at the table and ordered some food. So what's your name, little missy? Fox asked as they waited for their food. I'm Flair Corona, the girl greeted politely. Hello Flair, you can call me Fox, Fox said. Tell me, why did they send you away from your village, if you don't mind me asking? My guardians thought it was good for me to be with my own people for a while, Flair explained. Our people? Fox asked, confused as he tilted his head. Yeah, Flair said with a nod. I'm from Sun Village, which is the home of the giants. Fox sat there, silent for a few moments before nodding. She's heard stories of giants before, but like dragons, they seem to have faded into fantasy. But he was from another world, so he was open-minded about things like this. That, and he could feel that the girl was not lying. I see, it must have been difficult for you to be around small people now, he told the nervous girl. If he suddenly moved to a place with people older than him, he would be nervous too. Did your guardians tell you anything else? No, I just have to be careful and find good friends, Flair replied. Fox just nodded. The giants probably didn't know how dangerous the world is, since they are so big that there weren't many threats to them. Then the food appeared, and the two began to eat. Flair seems to enjoy the food as he ravenously ate. Fox just ate slowly, although Flair wondered how he was eating when his mouth was covered. They ate in silence before the last bite was gone, and Flair smirked. So tell me, Flair-san, Fox said, drawing her attention. What are your plans now? I don't know, Flair said as she looked down. Fox hummed as he scratched his chin. Do you know anything about magic? Yeah, Flair nodded before her hair suddenly moved, like a bunch of snakes. The guardian of my village blessed me with magic to control my hair. So, would you like to join Fairy Tail? Fox asked in a friendly tone. Fairy Tail? Flair asked, tilting her head. It's the guild I'm from, Fox said as he tapped the metal plate on his blindfold. A place where mages like me gather and make a living. There are a lot of good people in Fairy Tail, so you won't have any problems. Really? Flair asked, looking hopeful. Seriously, Fox said with a nod. I'll take you there tomorrow. Right now, we should get some rest. Flair, with a happy smile, nodded. Fox then booked a room for the two of them to share. Fox was sitting on his bed in a meditative state when Flair showered first. This was a good opportunity for him to train his chakra reserves. He began to stretch his chakra as far as he could, almost covering the entire town. He could feel every living thing in the city, from the oldest man sleeping to the smallest baby crying, from the largest dog eating to the smallest ant. He then began to gather the natural energy in the area, turning it into chakra. It was something he discovered a long time ago by accident when he was learning meditation to calm his emotions. He was tired from training that day, so he meditated to relax. As he began to focus on the area around him, he could feel a lot of energy in the area. Unintentionally, he used his chakra to absorb energy into the plants, quickly replenishing his reserves and causing him to grow as well as some physical changes. He did some research on what he did and the closest thing he discovered was senjutsu, a technique for gathering natural energy from the world around him, something the Shoden Hokage could do. He was surprised that he did something that the founder of his hometown could do, but it gave him the edge he needed in case he faced stronger opponents, so he kept practicing senjutsu until it became second nature to him. Gather natural energy. Then heard the bathroom door open. He turned to the direction where Flair was walking, dressed in the clothes she'd come in, now clean thanks to magic. She was drying her hair with a towel, but due to the length of it, she was having a hard time. Would you like some help? Fox asked Flair, who he was fighting. I'm sure there's a hairdryer in here somewhere. I don't want to upset you, Flair said in a sheepish tone. It's not a bother to help someone, Fox said, smiling behind her mask as he found the hair dryer. He was powered by Lacrima, a magical crystal used to power everyday appliances. Flair looked flustered before sitting down across from Fox, her back to him. Fox turned on the device, releasing hot air into Flair's hair as she gently combed it. Flair smiled happily, enjoying the feeling. This was the first time someone else was combing her long hair, and she felt soothed. Once she was done, she braided his hair until she was back to how he was. That's it, all set, he told Flair, who nodded happily. Now go to bed. Tomorrow we have a long journey. Hi, she said as she walked over to one of the beds. She lay down, covering herself with the blanket. A few minutes later, she was asleep, probably exhausted from her day. Fox just smiled before going to sleep in the other bed as well, making himself comfortable. The next day, Fox was bringing a nervous Flair to the fairy tale building, which was surprisingly quiet. The girl clung to the edge of his cloak as she followed him. That's it, all set, he told Flair, who nodded happily. Now go to bed. Tomorrow we have a long journey. Hi, she said as she walked over to one of the beds. She lay down, covering herself with the blanket. A few minutes later, she was asleep, probably exhausted from her day. Fox just smiled before going to sleep in the other bed as well, making himself comfortable. The next day, Fox was bringing a nervous Flair to the fairy tale building, which was surprisingly quiet. The girl clung to the edge of his cloak as she followed him. Now, don't be nervous, Fox told Flair, sensing her nervousness. They're good people. They're crazy, but they're still good people. Flair looks at Fox before taking a deep breath and nodding. Fox then entered the guild with Flair in tow. They all looked at him before exclaiming, Fox. Are you okay? Lucy exclaimed, happy and relieved to have him back. She felt strange without him in the guild. It's good to have you back, Fox-san. Mirajane said with a big smile. What did they do to you? Natsu exclaimed. Did they torture you with seals or something? Hey, who's that girl with you? Wow, she's cute. Her hair of hers is so long. Flair flustered at the attention and hid behind Fox. Suddenly, Kurama landed on top of Fox and sighed comfortably. Fox just smiled behind his mask as he petted his furry companion. Thank you for keeping Natsu here, otherwise I would have stayed there one more night, Fox said to his partner. Don't mention it, it was boring without you here, Kurama said before closing his eyes. Makarov suddenly walked towards Fox, silencing everyone. He stopped in front of him with a serious look. I'm back, old man, Fox greeted with a bow. What did the council want? He asked him. Nothing, just someone to blame and pay damages, Fox replied before pointing at the girl hiding behind him. Oh, and this is Flair-san. I found her when she was going home and she has nowhere to go, so I thought she would join the guild. Makarov looked at the girl, who was looking through the cloak. Fox then patted the girl encouragingly. The girl looked at him and saw him nod, before walking towards Makarov. I am Flair Corona and I would like to join Fairy Tail, she said with a bow. Well, if you brought her, why not? Makarov said with a big smile. Welcome to Fairy Tail, Flair-chan. Mirajane took the young woman to the bar to get her seal and sign some papers, and Fox went to her usual table. He sighed, finally feeling comfortable coming home. Lucy sat next to him, as did Urza, Natsu, Happy, Lisana, and Gray, much to his surprise. Hey, what really happened at the Magic Council? Lucy asked, curious. As I said, they just wanted to blame the damage you guys caused, Fox said, looking at Natsu, Gray, and Urza. Hey, you fought too. Gray exclaimed. No, I didn't, Fox said as he took out his sake bottle and glass from him. I was just a bystander who got caught. Fox-san, Urza said, drawing his attention. A man named Seagrain spoke to you? Yes, Fox replied. Actually, he was the one who requested my arrest. Urza's eyes widened a bit before calming down. Are you an acquaintance of Seagrain-san? Fox asked. No, but he was with someone he knows, Urza replied before calming down. Fox. Natsu suddenly exclaimed, slapping his hands on the table. Fight with me. No thanks, Fox said before turning to Lucy. So when should we continue training, Lucy-san? Hey, don't ignore me. Natsu exclaimed, fire erupting from his mouth. Fight me, Fox. How about you fight Kurama, Natsu-san? Fox suggested. What? I'm not going to fight him. Natsu exclaimed, getting angry. Yeah, he couldn't beat me anyway, Kurama said, a smug edge to his voice. What do you say? Natsu exclaimed in anger. You want to fight? Go ahead, Kurama said as he floated from Fox's words and made a let's go gesture with his paws. Natsu roared and charged at Kurama, his fists alight with fire. He threw a punch, but Kurama disappeared, causing him to miss. Huh, where did he go? He asked as he turned his head left and right. Then something hit the top of his head at full speed, sending him face first to the ground. Kurama then jumped off Natsu's head and back onto Fox's. The guild was silent for a minute before they began to laugh uncontrollably. Natsu lost to Kurama. Man, how embarrassing. Ha ha ha. Gray would laugh too, but he knows how strong Natsu is personally, so he was surprised to see Natsu take a hit from Kurama. Urza looked at Natsu before Kurama and Fox. I told you Kurama was strong, Lucy said to Gray and Urza as Happy hit Natsu with a stick as Lisana began to bandage his head. Era, he sure has perked up, Mirajane said as she carried 2 bowls of ramen with Flair at her side, her guild mark located on the right side of her chest, the vermilion ink. Here, Fox-kun, I thought you might want something to eat. Fox-kun? Lucy thought as Mirajane put the bowls down as Flair sat down next to Fox. Thank you Mirajane-san, Fox said as Kurama started to eat his part. I'm pretty hungry. Excellent, Mirajane said with a bright smile and a rosy hue to her cheeks, causing Lucy to look at Mirajane suspiciously. Suddenly, Lucy began to sway, her eyes heavy. She wasn't the only one, as everyone in the guild started swaying before suddenly falling asleep. Lucy fell out of her chair, with Urza and Gray following behind. Mirajane started to fall toward the table head first before Fox gently caught her so she wouldn't get hurt. Flair fell to the ground, also asleep. The only ones who weren't sleeping were Makarov, Fox, and Kurama, who were still eating. They then heard footsteps and a figure walking in the guild. He was a slim-built man dressed in a dark blue cloak, his arms and legs covered in bandages, and blue and gray clothing with a pair of brown sandals and dark blue gloves. His face was covered by a headband with a metal plate and a dark green scarf, and he carried a wooden cane, with 4 more canes strapped to his back. Welcome back, Mistogan, Makarov greeted the well-dressed man. Yo, Mistogan-san, Fox greeted as he gently lowered Mirajane to the ground. Greetings, Fox-san, Mistogan said before addressing the request board. You know, you really should stop casting this sleep spell, Fox commented as Mistogan took a request. I prefer little interaction, Mistogan said when he received Makarov's approval to do the search. Well, later, Fox said as Mistogan started out the exit, giving Fox a small wave. Hey, undo your spell, Makarov exclaimed. 5.4.3. Mistogan counted as he walked out of the guild. 2.1. Undo. As soon as he left, everyone who fell asleep suddenly woke up, yawning and stretching. Lucy got up sleepily and rubbed her eyes. What happened? She asked tiredly, seeing that almost all of Fairy Tail had fallen asleep and were slowly waking up, except for Natsu, who was still unconscious from Kurama's attack. This feeling was Mistogan, Urza concluded. Mistogan, that bastard. He always does this, putting everyone to sleep. Man, his sleep spell is strong. Mistogan? Lucy asked as Flair and Mirajane stood up, rubbing their eyes cutely. One of Fairy Tail's S-class mages, Fox answered, putting his chopsticks into the empty bowl of ramen. Lucy blinked as she stared at the bowl, wondering how long she'd been asleep and if he'd already finished the ramen. Why did he put everyone to sleep? Flair asked, tilting her head. He doesn't like to interact with others, Fox explained, causing those close to him to give him strange looks. That's weird coming from you, Gray said with a deadpan expression. That's bad, Fox said, though he said it in his monotone voice. At least I don't put people to sleep. He's right, Urza said with a nod. No one but the master knows what Mistogan looks like. That's not true, said a voice from the upper levels. They looked up to see a blond man with gray eyes with a lightning bolt scare in his right eye, dressed in a purple polo shirt, brown pants, black shoes, a black coat with gray fur as a cape, and a pair of magic headphones, crossing his arms and smiling. I also know what he looks like. Laxus. You're back, one of them exclaimed. Who is he? Lucy asked as she looked at the man. That's Laxus Drayar, another S-class wizard, Urza answered, surprising Lucy. Laxus then looked at Fox, grinning widely. Besides, I'm not the only one who knows Mistogan, Laxus said. Fox seems to be friends with him. We work together from time to time, Fox said with a shrug, surprising the other wizards. They didn't know about it. Laxus. Fight me. Natsu exclaimed, having woken up and jumping towards the man. Before Natsu could reach him, a giant hand slammed him to the ground. The hand belonged to Makarov, who didn't even look at Natsu when his arm returned to normal. Natsu, you know you can't go up to the second floor, he said as he lit his pipe. Only S-class wizards are allowed. Hey, how come? Lucy asked, looking at Urza. That's where all the S-rank quests are, Urza replied, looking at Lucy. Quests so dangerous that only S-class wizards can take them. We keep them on the second floor, so people aren't tempted to take the quest. Her gaze turned to Natsu, and Lucy understood that. Natsu seems like the type of person who would take on a dangerous mission for fun. He was probably safe for missions to be away from them. HMPH, you should stay there at home Natsu, Laxus said as he walked away from the wooden rails. Just like the rest of you. Ha 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 ha. Many of them seem angry at Laxus's comments, and they started yelling what an idiot he is. Man, what an idiot, Lucy commented with a pout. Don't worry about him, Urza said, though she seems displeased. By the way, Mirajane-san, Fox said, drawing the waitress's attention, not bothered by Laxus's speech. Can Flair-san stay in Fairy Hills? There is no other place for her to stay. Sure, I'll help her get settled, Mirajane said helpfully. Fairy Hills? Lucy asked, confused. It's a female-only dorm for Fairy Tail, Fox explained. It's located in the nearby hills. The rent is 100,000 jewels a month. Hey, Lucy exclaimed in shock. So cheap. Why didn't I know about this? You didn't ask, Kurama replied with a shrug. Besides, you have a good place. But I have to pay 500,000 jewels a month. Oh well, too late, Kurama said as Lucy knelt on the ground, a depression cloud washing over her. Later. Lucy was walking back to her apartment, balancing on the ledge of the bridge, with Plu, a dog spirit that looks like a little snowman, walking beside her. God, I learned so much today, she told Plu, who was shaking like always. Just like the guild ranking. I've already met 3 of the 6 strongest, well, 2 of them. Oh, and Fox-kun. He's definitely strong. Then there's me, Kurama, Natsu, and Gray, and then everyone else. She imagined the hierarchy of the guild, with Fox, Urza, Laxus, and 4 mysterious figures at the top of the pyramid, then below them were her, Kurama, Natsu, and Gray, and at the bottom were the remaining fairy tale mages. Who doesn't seem happy to be at the bottom? Man, there are so many amazing people in Fairy Tail, Lucy said with a small smile. Maybe if I train hard enough, I'll end up as an S-class mage. She then opened the door to her apartment and walked in, and was greeted with the sight of a sweaty Natsu doing squats, and happy copying him. GYA. She exclaimed in shock before she changed to disgust. What are you doing? You're sweating all over my rug. We're just training, Natsu said as he finished his sit-ups, drying his face with a towel. Yes. Happy agreed. Guess what Lucy, Natsu said with a smile as he showed her an application form. Let's go on a mission. Really? Lucy told her as she picked up the newspaper and read it, but she stopped when she saw what rank she had. Wait, this is an S-rank mission. Yeah, Happy stole it. Natsu said with a smile. Crazy. Lucy exclaimed, waving her arms around. You could get in trouble. Come on, it'll be fun. Natsu said with a smile, not ashamed of his crime. No way, Lucy said as she crossed her arms and looked away with a snort. I don't want to get in trouble. Fine, Natsu said with a snort before he and Happy climbed out the window. Come out like a normal person. Lucy exclaimed as the 2 jumped out the window. Geez, those 2. She then realized that the request was on the ground. They forgot the application, Lucy said as she picked it up. I should probably give it back, She read the request, that she asked for help in a village located on the island of Galuna. Then she saw the reward. Wow, 70 million jewels. That's a lot, Lucy muttered before noticing something. An additional reward. Her eyes widened when she saw that the bonus reward was a golden key, one of the 12 keys of the zodiac. She stood there for a few seconds before smiling mischievously. Natsu. Happy. Wait, she exclaimed as she hurried out of her apartment and ran after the 2 of them. End chapter. Chapter 7. And this is how I drink without taking off my mask, Fox said to Flair, who was looking at him in amazement as they walked towards the guild. Wow, said Flair in amazement. That's amazing, Fox-san. Rather weird, Kurama said with a snort. I wonder where Lucy-san went? Fox commented when they saw the guild building. She wasn't at the guild 2 days ago. She's probably gone on a mission, troublesome blonde, Kurama said with a snort. She left without undoing her gravity seals. When Fox saw that Lucy was not at her meeting place 2 days ago, he thought that she was going on a mission with Natsu, so he decided to take a mission as well. He chose an easy one, locating a rare plant. Just as he was about to leave, Flair walked up to him and asked if she could come with him. Seeing no damage, he let the girl accompany him. During those 2 days, Flair kept asking questions about the guild and about himself, and the questions weren't really personal, so he answered all of them. Well, with Natsu-san with her, I'm sure she's not in any danger, Fox said as they entered the guild. Did what? Flair and Kurama jumped while Fox just bowed his head. In the center of the guild was Urza, very angry, with some of the guild members getting as far away from her as possible. The only people who didn't back down in fear were Makarov, Mirajane, Kurama, and Fox. What's wrong, Urza-san? Fox asked as he walked towards the angry redhead, with Flair trembling behind him and Kurama sighing. Natsu, Happy, and Lucy stole an S-rank mission. Urza exclaimed. And by the looks of it, Gray joined them. Urza stopped talking when she felt a monstrous pressure that made her sweat a little, and everyone felt it too. Urza and some of the wizards turned to Fox, who was unnaturally quiet, the overwhelming pressure coming from him. There was also a faint image behind him, like a monstrous figure with 9 tails and long ears. The pressure was suddenly gone as if it was just his imagination. Old man, will you let me take them? Fox asked, looking at the amused Makarov. Sure, go ahead, he said as he took a drink from his mug. I haven't seen him this angry for a while. I'll be back in a week, he said as he walked out of the guild, Kurama still in the lead of him. Wait, I'm coming with you, Urza said, walking towards Fox, who stopped in front of the door. Those 3 need discipline. Fox nodded and the 2 wizards, plus the cat, left the guild to search for their troublesome comrades. Man, I feel sorry for Natsu, Gray, Happy, and the new girl. Still, who knew Urza could be so mad? It almost pissed me off. Surprised, Fox volunteered to go find them. At least Urza is with him. Wow, Lisana commented, calming her pounding heart, her sweat dripping lightly from her forehead. I didn't know Fox could do that, right, Mirane? Lisana turned to her older sister and blinked when she saw her. Mirajane looked a little dazed, her cheeks flushed and her chest heaving slightly. Mirane. Lisana said, a little worried. Mirajane walked out of there, trying to control her blush as she giggled sheepishly. I must have moved away a bit, she said before walking quickly to the kitchen. Sorry. Mirajane took a deep breath as she tried to control her beating heart. It's been a long time since she felt that feeling, and she turned it on. She bit her thumb, calming the demon inside her. I need to calm down, she panted as she rubbed her thighs. Fox-kun. I need to calm down, she panted as she rubbed her thighs. Fox-kun. Mirajane wasn't the only one who reacted to Fox's sudden pressure. Kaina's face was red as she rubbed her thighs together, fighting the urge. She suddenly grabbed the 2 nearest barrels and gulped them down as fast as she could, fighting her desire through the alcohol. So how was your mission with Fox, Flair-chan? Lisana asked the young wizard, trying to ease the tension. Meanwhile, Fox and Urza moved through the city as fast as they could before stopping at the edge. This seems to be a good place, said Fox, stopping near a forest. What are you doing, Fox-san? Urza asked. Something that makes us move faster, Fox answered as he extended his hand. Give me your hand. Urza looked at the hand before she reluctantly took it. Shadow grace, shadow travel. Suddenly, her entire world was surrounded by rushing shadows as she felt an invisible force pull her in, suffocating her. Before she could react, she saw that she was in Harem town. She looked around her in surprise, since it usually takes someone half a day to get to town. How did we get here? She asked, looking at Fox. I used my magic, Fox explained as he pointed to the shadow they were standing in. If it's a place I've been before, I can use the shadows to get there in an instant. How helpful, Urza said, impressed. I guess there's more to you than you're revealing. You can let go of my hand now, Fox said. Urza, noticing that she was still holding Fox's hand, released her immediately, turning red as she stammered an apology. Well, let's go find a boat and catch those 4 idiots, Fox said as he walked towards the port, followed by Urza. I'm surprised you're mad that they stole an S-rank mission, Urza said as they headed for the port. I thought you wouldn't mind. I'm not mad that they stole an S-rank quest. I did something similar when I was young, Fox replied, surprising Urza that Fox did an S-rank quest when he was young. I'm angry that Lucy-san went on a dangerous mission without going to me first. She knows that her movements are restricted, and I'm the only one who can fix that. Does it have something to do with your seals? Urza asked, remembering those glowing symbols Fox seems to create. The ones on your dolls? How perceptive of you, Fox commented. Yes, the seals on Lucy-san's wrist are gravity seals, which restrict her movements. Why would you do that to her? Urza asked, confused. Training, Fox explained. She will make her lighter, faster, and stronger. With her natural flexibility, she would be very formidable in combat, combined with her celestial spirits. Why are you training Lucy-san? Urza suddenly asked. If you don't mind me asking, Fox-san. She may not know Fox, but she knows him well enough to be confused as to why she was training Lucy, despite being secluded with the other wizards in the guild. You can tell that Lucy-san reminds me of someone, Fox answered. Really who? Urza asked, curious. Me, Fox replied, sounding wistful. Before I joined Fairy Tail, she reminded me of myself. I see, Urza said, looking at Fox. She seemed almost sad. Well, let's find a boat, Urza-san, Fox said when they reached the port. The two asked for a lift from any available ship or boat, but when they were told they were going to Galuna Island, they refused, pale and scared. It seems that nobody wants to take us, Urza said after asking all the sailors in the port. Do you want to swim there? Fox asked as she looked at the wide sea. Hey, what's that? Kurama said, pointing to the port. The three of them spotted a pirate ship that seems to be scaring people in the harbor, with the pirates making loud noises as they approach the harbor. I guess we found our way, Fox said as Urza summoned her sword, the two of them waiting for the pirate ship to come closer. Come on guys, let's ransack this place before those Rune Knights come, exclaimed the pirate captain. He wears a pirate hat with an orange smiley face that has a fork and spoon crossing underneath. He has gray hair and a big beard. He wears a patch over his left eye. The coat he wears is purple. His left hand is a hook. He has a pirate sword on the left side of him. He also wears a big belt and his height is quite short. Yes, his crew exclaimed. Fox, Kurama, and Urza were sitting on beach chairs while the pirates were at work, as the pirate ship headed for Galuna Island. Captain, how long to Galuna Island? Fox asked, looking at the short man, who was steering the ship. It's only worth 1 day, Fox-san, replied the captain, turning to look at them. But are you sure you want to go to that cursed island? Yeah, we're going to pick up some troublemakers, Urza replied calmly, but inside she was very angry. Well, I wish you luck, the pirate said before concentrating on the address. As long as there's no storm, it'll be nice sailing until we reach the cursed island. Let's hope they haven't gotten into trouble, Urza said, causing Kurama to snort. Knowing them, they're already in trouble, she said as she settled in and took a nap. I'm sure they're okay, hopefully, Fox said, though he didn't think so. Later. Kya! Lucy exclaimed as she clung to the giant flying rat's tail for the life of her, with the rat that was dressed in girly clothes falling onto the beach. On her back was a woman with pink hair tied in pigtails, a choker tied to a ribbon, a short purple and pink spaghetti dress with light pink trim, black leggings, and high-heeled sandals. This wasn't how she thought it would go with the S-rank mission Natsu took on. From what the villagers said, they wanted the moon to be destroyed, which was purple for some reason, turning the villagers into scaly, winged demons. She, Natsu, Gray, and Happy did some digging and saw the purple light from the moon directed at the ruin, discovering a terrifying monster trapped in the ice, shocking Gray. He told them that it was the demon named Deliora, the same demon that destroyed her village and killed the person who taught her ice make magic. They then discovered a strange group that was using the purple moonlight to melt the ice that trapped the demon, and to Gray's surprise, it was a white-haired man named Leon, Gray's fellow disciple, who wanted to free Deliora to fight it. Lucy returned to the village to protect them but was destroyed by Sherry and her rat, which she spit out acid. She then found herself flying with the mouse and managed to knock it out with a gentle fist to her abdomen. The two landed in the sand, with Lucy rolling on the ground to avoid damage. She looked at the rat, who seemed to have been knocked out, her eyes rolling. No, Angelica-chan, Sherry Blendy cried as she hugged the tortoise-colored rat. My dear Angelica-chan. She suddenly looked at Lucy, who stood up, clenching her teeth slightly. She could feel her limbs being restricted due to the gravity seals. She should have gone to Fox first to open the gravity seals, but she was afraid that he would force her not to go on the S-rank mission. You, Sherry exclaimed, looking at Lucy. You will pay for hurting my pretty Angelica-chan. A magic circle appeared in the sand, and it began to form a huge humanoid figure with holes for eyes and a mouth. Doll magic, sand dolls, she exclaimed as the sand doll roared. Take down this woman who hurt Angelica-chan and plans to steal Leon Sama's heart with her bitch body. Here's, Lucy exclaimed, offended by that comment. It wasn't her fault that she was incredibly hot and sexy. The sand doll looked at Lucy, who gulped as she did the gentle fist stance, preparing to fight, despite being restricted, and she couldn't use her heavenly spirits, as her opponent could somehow control them, and it required a lot of effort. concentration, for them to return to the heavenly spirit world. When the sand doll was right in front of her, there was a flash of light, and suddenly the sand doll split in half. Standing behind the fallen sand doll was Urza, her sword glinting in the moonlight, shocking the two girls. What? Sherry said before someone cut the back of her head. She fell backward and was caught by Fox, who gently lowered her to the sandy ground, tying her up with ninja cables. What a giant rat, said a voice behind Lucy, spinning her around and seeing Kurama tie Angelica up with a ninja cable. Fox-kun, Kurama, Urza-san, Lucy exclaimed with relief and happiness. I thought those feelings were short-lived as Urza gave him a very scary look. Oops. You're in big trouble, Lucy, Urza said in a threatening tone. It took Lucy a few seconds to remember that the mission request had been stolen. Well, you see, Lucy said nervously, trying to think of an excuse. She then decided to run, but her limb seals glowed and she suddenly felt her body become heavy, causing her to fall face first into the sand. Era, you didn't think you could escape, did you, Lucy-san? Fox said in a humorous tone, startling Lucy. I thought she had trained you better than that. I can explain, Lucy said as she tried to move. Lucy, a voice called out from the sky, causing them to look up and saw Happy flying towards them. Are you okay? Happy froze when he saw Urza glaring at him. He quickly flew in the opposite direction as fast as he could but was quickly subdued by Urza, who quickly tied her up. Where are Natsu and Gray? She asked in a threatening tone. Natsu chased after Gray, who chased after the boys trying to free Deliora. Happy cried. Delirium? Fox asked, intrigued. This could be troublesome. What is a creation of Zareth doing here? Kurama asked as he landed on Fox's head. A crazy bunch of people brought Deliora here and they're trying to free him, Lucy explained, still struggling. We have to stop them. No, Urza said, surprising Lucy. What we have to do is bring you back so that Master Makarov can punish you. But kya, Lucy said before she is hoisted up over Fox's shoulder. We'll worry about that later, Fox said as he and Urza walked into the jungle. For now, let's find the others. Hey, get your hand off my butt, Lucy exclaimed when she felt her hand resting right on her bottom, her face red. This is punishment for going on a dangerous mission without telling me, Fox said simply, his hand still on her behind. Don't justify enduring a sensation, you pervert. He ignored her protest as he and Urza walked through the jungle and came across the area where the villagers were sheltering, as their village was destroyed by acid rain. They heard from the villagers that Gray was found in the woods, unconscious and beaten. Fox handed Lucy over to Urza and went to the tent where Gray was resting. After running some medical diagnostics, Fox applied some first aid and then left Gray to sleep. Fox then sat in the tent and pondered, feeling that he might need it for later. As he gathered some natural energy, he sensed something strange about the villagers. They were demons, true, but it didn't seem like they transformed into demons, in fact, their energy felt natural. No, it changed anyway. Something's not right here, Fox said as he mustered up enough energy. He then noticed Gray move. Gray groaned as he sat up, rubbing his head. Good morning, Sleeping Beauty, Fox said, causing Gray to look at him in surprise. Fox? Gray said, surprised to see the shinobi. What are you doing here? Just making sure my student was safe, Fox said as he stood up. Urza-san, on the other hand, came here to grab you four idiots. She already has two of you. Urza is here? Gray said, turning pale. Yeah, and she's mad, Fox said as he stood up and opened the flap of the tent. Well, let's not keep her waiting. Chop, chop, Gray-san. The two left the store, where many villagers were walking around, depressed, due to the loss of their homes. Some of them greeted the two wizards, still showing some hope. They then reached a tent, and Fox opened the flap for Gray, motioning for him to enter the tent, which was less friendly than the other tents. Swallowing hard, Gray walked into the shop and saw Urza sitting on a chair, her arms crossed. Besides her, there was a tied Happy and an immobilized Lucy, both crying. Kurama, who was sitting on Lucy's head, flew up and landed on Fox's head. Urza, Gray said, trying not to run as Urza glared at him. Look, I can explain. Save it for Master Makarov, Urza said suddenly as he stood up. Once we find Natsu, we'll go back to the guild. What? Gray exclaimed, surprised. But we can't leave, Lucy exclaimed. What about the villagers? You broke the rules, Urza said simply. You must be punished. I can't leave yet. There's something I have to do on this island. Gray exclaimed, challenging Urza for the first time in his life. As much as I agree with you, Urza-san, Fox said suddenly, drawing his attention. It won't be good for Fairy Tail if we just abandon these people. Besides, we're already here, we might as well finish the job. We can take them to the old man later. Urza mused, thinking about Fox's words. After a few seconds, she relented. Alright, we'll do it your way, Fox-san. Fox nodded and made a hand seal. Lucy's wrists and ankles glowed and she felt her gravity seals released, letting her move again. Well then, take us to the ruins, said Fox. What about Natsu? Happy asked, worried about his best friend. Hopefully he'll be in the ruins, already causing trouble, Fox said before turning to Gray. From what Lucy said, you and this Leon were fellow disciples. Why is he doing this? He wants to surpass her, the one who taught us, Gray explained. But since she left, he believes that by defeating Deliora, he would surpass her. I see, Fox mused as they left the store and followed them into the ruins. The group walked through the jungle and after a few minutes of running found the ruins, but it was tilted. The illumination of the entire place was purple moonlight. What happened to the ruins? Lucy asked as she looked at the ruins. That was probably what Natsu did, Happy said happily. I see, that's pretty smart, Gray commented with a smile. If the ruins are tilted, moon drip will not hit Deliora. Suddenly, the ruins began to move, shocking everyone. He moved until he was straight and steady, allowing the moonlight to enter the ruins. What happened? Lucy exclaimed, surprised by the ruins straightening up. Before they could realize what had happened, the bushes parted, and they saw several people in red and white robes and tribal masks, with swords and spears, walking toward them. Let's go. Urza exclaimed, pointing to the ruins. I'll handle this. Right. Gray exclaimed as he ran towards the ruins. Lucy and Happy were about to follow him, but Fox stopped them. Stay here and help Urza-san, Fox said as Kurama jumped out of his head. I will help Gray-san. Lucy looked at him before nodding and taking the celestial keys out of her, facing the cultists. Kurama just cracked his knuckles when Happy grabbed a stick from the ground. Fox quickly ran towards the ruins, going inside. He could feel that Gray was near the bottom of the ruins, surprising Fox at how fast he ran there. He could also feel Natsu close to his position, fighting with a familiar person. And under the ruins, he could feel two presences, one of them very demonic and evil. He felt Gray fight someone, and he seems to be losing. He quickly ran through the ruins to help Gray. A few minutes before, Gray ran to the bottom of the ruins to find Leon and ask him to stop. If Leon kept using moon drip, would be truly lost. Suddenly, birds made of ice flew towards him, causing him to make a shield to block the ice birds. He looked over and saw Leon walking toward him with a smile. I'm surprised you're still alive, Gray, Leon said, his right hand releasing a white mist. I think you're a little better than before. Lion, listen to me. Gray exclaimed. You can't melt ice shell. Why? Because you're afraid to see Deliora again? Leon said in a teasing tone. Because if you undo ice shell, really will be dead, Gray explained, causing Leon to look at him in surprise. Lives on. The ice cap is holding Deliora's trap. And if you melt it down to free Deliora, you will kill Gray watched as Leon stopped, thinking that he had finally gotten through. But then, he felt a cold prickling sensation on his side. He looked down and saw one of the ground ice birds stabbing into his side of him. Did you really believe that is alive? Leon said, a cold expression on his face. Is dead. Thanks to you. He gave his life to save a weakling like you. I see, that explains everything, a voice said, causing the two of them to look up and see Fox appear next to Gray. Who are you? Leon said, looking at the newcomer, scoffing that he doesn't look like much. Get out of here, Fox. Gray said as he removed the bird that stabbed him. This is my battle. I need to do this alone. Fox glared at him before kicking at the wound, causing Gray to scream as he fell to the ground, holding the bleeding wound. Yeah, sure you can fight, said Fox as Gray mustered enough strength to look at Fox and look at him. Stop complaining. Just spit it out, and it will heal. I thought you were a healer. Fox ignored him and walked over to Leon, who simply smiled at him, thinking that Fox was nothing to worry about. Ice make bear. Ice make lion, he exclaimed as he created a giant bear and a lion out of ice. If you think you can beat me, then surely you are wrong. Suddenly, Fox was walking beside Leon, who blinked in shock before falling to the ground, groaning in pain, clutching his stomach as his ice animals shattered. Gray's eyes widened in surprise, as he didn't see Fox move. Someone like you, who would sacrifice others for your ambition, would never surpass your master, who would sacrifice himself for the people he cares for, Fox said as he began to walk towards the stairs of the ruins. Gray-san, go find your classmate, I'll take care of Deliora. Wait, you can't fight that monster. Gray exclaimed as he covered the wound with ice and ran after Fox, only to have the entrance blocked by shadows. Damn. No, Leon moaned as he tried to get to his feet, staring at the blocked entrance. My goal. Gray looked at the wall of shadows before grabbing a protesting Leon and running through the ruins. Fox went down the stairs and through the trembling caverns, feeling one of the presences weaken. He then found himself face to face with the monster Deliora, a massive dark blue, humanoid demon. He has a large torso and two large arms that end in scaly hands. On the left and right sides of his torso, as well as around his neck, they were covered with a series of spikes. Additionally, it has two large legs, while the legs resemble those of a bird, with additional spikes on its back. His hair is shaped like a mane and flows towards the nape of his neck. He has a pair of horns that point upwards, protruding from a plate on his forehead. He also has large pointed teeth, as well as two hollow eyes. So this is one of Zeref's demons, just like Lullaby, Fox commented as the demon roared, shaking the caverns. I have to say I'm not impressed. Deliora saw Fox and roared, swinging her massive fist at him. Fox simply raised his right hand and blocked the blow, which sent out a shockwave that destroyed the cavern behind Fox. My turn, Fox said as he spun his entire body around, spinning Deliora up into the air. She then extended her right hand and a giant ball of red energy formed in his hand. Explosive Rasengan. Outside the ruins, Urza, Lucy, Kurama, and Happy tied up the beaten cultists just as Natsu rushed towards them, followed by Gray, who was carrying Leon. When he told them where Fox was, they were worried. Urza was about to rush into the ruins to help Fox, the ruins suddenly exploded. When the smoke cleared, his eyes widened in shock. They all watched as Deliora, the massive demon that killed many people, flew into the air, a spinning red orb piercing his abdomen. He roared in pain before the orb glowed and released a huge explosion that destroyed Deliora, leaving no trace of her. After the initial shock, all of the cultists suddenly cheered, crying with joy. When they were beaten, they already explained that they were survivors of Deliora's previous attacks, and only helped Leon hoping to get revenge on her for losing her families. Finally, my parents can rest in peace. That was for my son, monster. I can finally sleep at night. Gray, Leon said, drawing Gray's attention. He saw Leon's eyes and could no longer see the dark, aimless look in his eyes. Instead, there seems to be a new vigor in them. That man, who is he? Gray smiled as he looked at the place where the monster that ruined his life disappeared. This is Fox, a mage from fairy tale. In the caverns, Fox faces the hole he created, shaking the smoke from his right hand. It has been a while since he used one of the Rasengan that he created. He was about to go through the hole before he felt something, a living presence. He looked towards the place where Deliora was and saw a lot of water from the ice. He saw a large piece of ice and could feel its presence of it. She walked over to him and gently picked him up. Could this be? He mused before pulling out a blank scroll, opening it, and taking his brush and some ink. He began to write elegantly on the scroll, making complex kanji and formulas. Once he was satisfied with the seals, he put the ice in the center and cut his hand, covering the palm with his blood. Fine. Outside the ruins, the fairy tale mages were waiting for Fox. Most of the cultists have already left, but only a few remained: Leon, Sherry, a dog-like man named Toby, and a short man with unusual eyebrows and a blue braided ponytail. Where is the? Lucy asked, worried as she held Kurama. Do you think he's okay? I know Fox, he's fine, Kurama said, not really worried about Fox. I hope he fights me. Natsu exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. See how he beat that massive monster? That was amazing. Natsu, he'll just hit you easy, Happy said. No, he won't. He's coming, Kurama said, his ears perked up. And he is not alone. They all looked up and saw Fox, but he wasn't wearing his cape, showing 3 fox tails waving behind him. And in his arms, he carried his cloak, wrapped around a girl. Gray and Leon's eyes widened at the sight of the sleeping girl. The daughter of they said in shock as Gray stopped in front of them. That guy has 3 tails. Toby exclaimed in shock. What a weirdo. You're not one to talk, Yuka said, looking dog-faced at her partner. Fox-san, where did that girl come from? Urza asked, looking at the girl in her arms. Oh, she was a giant lump of ice before she unleashed the spell, Fox replied as the girl stirred in her sleep. Wait, she was the ice cap? Gray asked as he and Leon looked at Fox in shock. She means. The girl then opened her eyes, blinking rapidly before looking at Leon and Gray, before giving a small smile. You two got bigger, she said. Master the two said teary-eyed. Cast off Fox's arms, the cloak covering her body. The two students slowly walked toward her as she opened her arms. Master the two exclaimed as they ran towards her teacher, before she hit them over the head, giving them lumps. You two idiots, she exclaimed angrily. Don't think I don't know what they were doing. Gray, it looks like you're weakening yourself if you can't beat Leon who was using his wrong ice make. And Leon, don't think I wasn't. I don't know why you wanted to fight him. Deliora. Even when I'm freezing, you two always make me worry. It was a strange scene, seeing two young men being scolded by a nearly naked girl. The group blinked as continued to lecture the two. This is kind of fun, Kurama said as the lecture continued for 15 minutes. Finally stopped her lecture, taking a deep breath. She looked at her two students of hers, who were kneeling with them facing the ground. She then smiled motherly as she hugged them, surprising them. I'm so happy to see you two doing so well, she said, causing the two of them to cry and hug her. I thought Gray's teacher would be the same age as the old man, Natsu commented, looking at the elderly ice make mage, imagining a short, almost bald with a mustache. He looks exactly like Makarov, but with breasts. That's not even close. Lucy exclaimed, looking at the female version of Makarov strangely. But still, why is he so young? It's because of how much magic I have on the ice, Fox explained as Happy played with his tails. The amount of magic in the ice was enough to give it this shape. I see, Urza said, looking impressed. For him, reversing a spell to seal a monster like Deliora shows how much skill he has, which was just as impressive as defeating Deliora. Oh, an excellent job defeating Deliora, Fox-san. Fox said, bowing his head. I don't know what you're talking about, Urza-san. Deliora just jumped into the air and suddenly exploded. Being trapped in ice for a long time can do that to a monster. No, he does not. Natsu exclaimed angrily. Stop lying. Why are you hiding, Fox-san? Urza thought as Natsu yelled at Fox, who just bowed his head. End chapter.